Hi, everyone. Heather Williams here with the California After School Network for another Fireside Chat with Michael Funk from the Department of Education. And this week we are joined by Jennifer Peck from the Partnership for Children and Youth, representing the California After School Advocacy Alliance, or as we refer to for short, CA3. Welcome, Jennifer. Glad to have you here with us today. Well, we have been meaning to do this fireside chat for about a week now, Michael, but we've been waiting for more information, and we are still waiting for more information, but wanted to make sure we at least shared out what we know. And Jennifer is going to share some action items for the field as well. So wanted to jump on and share with everyone what's been going on with the governor's May revise his proposed budget. And a lot of the different details that go into that. There's a lot to be shared. So we definitely have a lot to celebrate. There's an unprecedented investment in after school and before school expanded learning. We're very excited about that. But there's also a lot of unique challenges with implementation. And so we'll get into the weeds of that as well. And so Michael, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Heather, and welcome, Jennifer. First time we've had you, so nice to see you. So hi, everyone. It's been a while since we've had one of these chats, as Heather said, and WOW has a lot of water gone under the bridge and a lot for us to celebrate and also a lot for us to pay attention to. So I think we can hold both of those things at the same time, and I want to start by elevating those things we should celebrate. And that is a historic proposal by the governor to invest $1 billion in expanded learning time. And that amount growing to $5 billion over the next several years. We've not seen that before. And if that goes through, starting this next year, California will actually be distributing more funds for expanded learning time than the federal Department of Education. Great opportunities for kids, good things for kids. There's a lot in this budget, the educational budget, that has really good things for kids. The $1 billion is not a competitive grant program. It is a formula allocation that uses LCAP data for the first year, targeting kids. 80% of the kids fall into the highest poverty level in LCAP, and it goes into more detail. What I want to be clear about is this is not directly connected with ACES funding. It's not more state money for ACES. It is a separate program. It is meant to be similar to ACES. And in fact, in the press conference, the governor clearly mentioned the historic Prop 49 and the fact that the ACES program is not meeting all the need throughout the state. Jennifer's going to talk more about that. But I want to point out that I think there's a direct correlation with the AB 86 $4.6 billion and this expanded learning time proposal of $1 billion going to $5 billion. There's a direct correlation to the effective work that you have done during the pandemic to support communities and kids, the effective work that you've done with the flexibility that we extended. Now, as soon as I say that, many of you are going to ask, okay, but does the flexibility continue? I can tell you that one of the things that the governor and the legislature were very clear with this past week was that there's no more distance learning. Schools open in the fall, kids are expected to go every day. And when that's the case, there's a need for after school. So we're still working on, okay, but is there some element of the flexibility that we should try to retain at least for one more year? But the notion that you could probably spend the money any time of the day, anywhere, any day, for whatever purpose is not likely. I'm just going to be honest. But what parts of flexibility should we fight for and work for? So those things are ongoing. Heather was right. We're waiting for information, but I don't want that to sound passive. I've been putting together very precise questions and talking points, both for the Assembly hearing on this past Tuesday and the Senate hearing this past Wednesday. Um, The expanded learning time proposal was talked about extensively in both, and I want to say very positively in both. So, of course, this budget process is going to play out very quickly in the next few weeks, but there are a few weeks for it to play out, and the legislature has to weigh in. And there are some things that we'll cover in just a minute that we need you to pay attention to. So for now, I want to celebrate you. I want to celebrate the work. Even before the pandemic, before we gave the flexibility, the impactful work that you've had for children, and now to be recognized by the K-12 system as truly an integral part of what our communities need and what our children need to support them. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Heather to get into some of the more specifics of the May revise and the May budget.
Sure, thanks, Michael. And so one of the things that, besides the $1 billion investment, some of the changes that we've seen, and this came from the Department of Finance on Friday, is we've been talking about the over $300 million investment to the state in before school, after school, and summer. So half of that, 150 for summer, the other 150 for before and after school. And so the letter outlined how the department is proposing those funds be used. And Jennifer will talk in a few more minutes about what of that we think makes sense and some other suggestions we might have for that, but just outlining how they've proposed spending those funds. And remember, they're just 2-year funds. So all of these proposals are just for the next 2 years. And after that, that funding would run out. So we would need to go back. But they are proposing 150 million would expand access to summer learning for the next 2 years. And then the other 150 million that's split out, about 128 million is to provide an ASES rate increase. And Jennifer will go into that a little bit more. $21 million is to provide to expand access or to provide more slots for ASES programs. And then a small amount, 2 million, is for rural school districts for ASES. And so that is the very technical breakdown. As Michael said, there are a lot of questions about what does that mean? What does that look like? How is it implemented? And also, does that make the most sense for how ASES should be structured? And so Jennifer will get into that, but I just want to say, CA3, before I turn it over to Jennifer, CA3 has also been very busy the last week, asking a lot of questions. What does this look like? How do we best support our field? What additional information we need? So lots of conversations with a lot of different folks to try to best support the field. And so, Jennifer, as I turn it over to you, just want to say a lot of appreciation to Partnership for Children and Youth, because you all staff CA3 and it's been an extremely busy week this week. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Heather, and thanks, Michael. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to join you today. And I just want to start by echoing what Michael began with around the huge news this budget is, and the huge expansion of dollars that are being proposed for after school and summer programs into the future in California. And I think even though we've been advocating really hard for years for more money for after school, even we were surprised at the level of increased investment that is in this budget proposal. So, again, echoing Michael, that I think this has so much to do with the amazing work that people have been doing out in the field and communicating that work to decision makers. It has really made a difference, and we are seeing that right now, and it's really exciting. However, part of my job here today is to put a fire under everybody around some of the things that are not in this proposal that are incredibly important to making sure that these new investments are actually going to effectively serve kids and families in the near term and the long term. And I'm gonna highlight just a few of them that everybody needs to be aware of. One of them is that the proposed increase to ASES, the rate increase, gets us only to $9.81 per child per day. which is far less than we have requested. CA3 earlier this year made a request for $10.75 per child per day for both the ASES and the 21st Century Community Learning Centers. And we came up with that calculation based on what we actually need to keep up with increases in the minimum wage and increases in the cost of living and the cost of doing business. It is a real number, and it is the number that we need for these programs to be quality and effective and sustainable over time. So we really need to continue to ask for that $10.75. I also want to point out that nothing in the governor's proposal suggested an increase of any kind for 21st century. So I want to remind people that right now the daily rate for ASES is $8.88 per child per day. And for 21st century, it remains $7.50. So we have, an even further way to go there. So it's really important in our advocacy. We are demanding the $10.75 for both ASES and 21st century. And there is enough resource in this budget to get there if we decide to make that choice. One of the things that's so unique about this budget right now is that, unlike any other year, we don't have to decide between quality and quantity here. We can both increase rates to where they need to be so we can provide the services we need to provide and honor and respect the people who do this work by paying them a living wage, giving them benefits, all of the things that they need. And we can expand slots to more kids. We don't have to choose between those two things. And I think that's a really important message that we need to be relaying moving forward. Another thing that was missing in this budget was any expansion of services for middle and high school students. The governor's budget suggests they really want to align this new funding with ASES, as Michael talked about. It's separate right now, but they want these programs to be aligned. However, ASES is a K-8 program, and they have only suggested expansion through 6th grade. So that's another thing that we are reminding the governor's office of, and we are pushing hard with our legislative leaders on. We cannot forget our middle and high school students when we're talking about expansion of these programs. So those are a couple of the things that I think we need to pay really close attention to and be communicating with decision makers about. And I'm going to give you a few very specific ways to be weighing in on these things. We have a very, very short time frame. This is a sprint between when the May budget revision happens and the legislature actually makes decisions, final decisions on this budget by the middle of June. There are going to be hearings in the Assembly and the Senate next week, at which time they may be voting on these proposals on Tuesday of next week. So literally between this afternoon, by the time you see this video, and Tuesday of next week, we need folks to be doing several things. We need to be contacting your legislative representatives in the governor's office. We need you to sign on to CA3's letter that we're going to be sending around. And we're also going to have texting and a lot of tools available for people to be using social media, et cetera. And we're drafting posts right now as we speak to send to you. All of these tools and resources are going to be available on CA3's website. CAN is going to be sending them around. We're going to be sending them through our newsletter and getting them out through all of our networks. And I cannot emphasize strongly enough how important it is that by the time you see this and Tuesday morning, you are acting on all of those things, getting your organization on our sign-on letter, posting in social media, and texting to your representatives. They really, really, really need to hear from the field in the same way that they've been hearing from you to get to these budget increases in the first place. We have to make sure we get this right. We get the investment right and rolled out in the way we know is going to make a difference for kids and families. So thank you again for having me here today. And we're really excited to get to the finish line on this budget in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Jennifer. And I do want to reiterate one thing Jennifer said, is that we need all of you to take this action. So, Jennifer and myself and Michael are all doing work and will continue to fight hard, but you all are the experts. You're on the front lines of doing this work. You are the most impacted. And so, as Jennifer said, our legislators need to hear directly from you. They would much rather hear from you than us. And you are more impactful, and what you have to say does make a difference. So, even if you have 2 minutes. Go on, retweet something, use the text message tool. It doesn't have to be lengthy. There's a lot of tools that you can take advantage of. So just find, 5 minutes in your day and make sure your voice is heard, so that we can continue to serve you and the communities in the way that you deserve to be served. So with that, as we send this out, we'll be sending out, as Jennifer said, all the tools and resources, and just want to again thank you for all that you do for our students and our families and communities. And Michael, I will turn it over to you to close this out.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Heather, as always, thank you to you and the California AfterSchool Network for hosting these fireside chats and giving us the ability to be accessible. So in addition, I just want to kind of close by saying, with all the things that have just been shared, there's a lot of things that are going to be moving very quickly. There are some elements of the unknown with, okay, what does that $1 billion look like? What are those programs? What are the requirements? I'm working on those things right now to try to sort out those details of what this is, the specifics of implementation. We're anticipating, because of the positive reception in the hearings, we're anticipating that this is probably going to move forward and starting to think and talk about implementation and the specifics. So there'll be more opportunity for you to learn more about that on future fireside chats and from communications from our office, which of course will be always forwarded by both the California AfterSchool Network, Partnership for Children and Youth, and CA3. There's another thing I want to raise and make sure people have on their radar. Many of you watching the chat were around in 2006 when the Proposition 49 passed in 2002 triggered and was implemented. And for those that were around, you know that one of the biggest challenges was trying to hire enough quality staff to get these programs up and running, because I think we got the news that it was going to trigger in the spring and programs had to be open in the fall. So that's actually a longer window than we have now. And and we have exponentially more money than was triggered then. And we're currently in the midst of the reality that most of your programs are having difficulty finding staff to hire, just like the corner restaurant, just like any staffing shortages are throughout the country. So just be mindful that there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of precision in planning that needs to happen, and a lot of attention to how do we support a quality workforce. And that gets into being able to pay them enough to attract them into this. But it also means making sure that they see this as different from another hourly wage, that they see this as an entry point to a career in education. So the work that many of you have been doing on expanded learning staff as a pathway into the teacher pipeline, for example, that can be a very attractive recruiting piece, and we have more to do to be more precise. And we have a workforce strategy committee that's been working. I met with the leadership yesterday. We're going to be pulling them in to talk about some of these specific things. So I just say that to close. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of moving pieces. We have 1 billion reasons to celebrate in this next budget year. And we have 1 billion reasons to be concerned that we get it right. Because if we don't get it right, we got 1 billion reasons to have a mess. So with that, stay tuned. We got a lot of work to do. And thank you for all you're doing. As I say, lead with love. Let's serve our kids. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks. Till next time.